thought I'd share that with you. You have some handouts. You have a copy of this presentation. I would encourage you to take notes, especially if you have questions. Write down any questions you may have on a specific slide. You also have an example of an A paper from a second semester student in my course. The purpose of that paper is to show you the kind of writing that we expect by your second semester, okay? So that's an A paper, and we'll talk a little bit about grades in this presentation. But for now, I'd like you to read through that and think about whether you feel you're capable of writing at that level. If you're not, I would highly recommend that you use the Writing Center here on campus. You can do it remotely. You can come visit them face-to-face. We actually have a graduate student assigned to help other graduate students with writing, okay? The last thing you have is a 8 gigabyte thumb drive. On that thumb drive are some documents that you need to know. There's a student handbook, there's the academic honesty code, there's a course catalog, and there's a few other items such as links to important MPA websites. Okay? Any questions about the material that I've given out? Excellent. Let's get started. So today, I'm going to do some professor introductions right off. We're going to introduce the professors that were kind enough to come in today. I'm going to let you introduce yourself as well, and I'll tell you the format of your introduction. We're going to talk a little bit about what an MPA is. And before we do that, I'd like a show of hands of the people who think they know what the MPA degree is all about. How many of you understand what a Master's of Public Administration degree entails? And by that I mean, what job might you have? Anybody have an idea? Come on. Somebody has an idea.
Right.
What kind of job would you have with an MPA degree?
City manager.
City manager. Excellent.
Chief of police.
Chief of police. Anybody else?
Nonprofit organization.
Outstanding. Nonprofits. Very good. Maybe I don't even need to talk about this
Get
degree.
you on WebEx. Your online students are waiting for you too.
Oh, are they?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know we weren't on WebEx. You're a good man.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
And do we have a camera at the back of the room that you can use so I don't have to stand here in front of this?
Those other cameras don't interface with WebEx. Interface with
So is this the only one that does?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to turn that screen sideways so I don't have to stand. Great picture.
Okay, they should be able to hear you and see
Outstanding.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's move this so I'm not...
And this turns too a little bit.
Oh, even better. All right. Let's see if I can see myself over here. Yeah, that'll
That's
work.
good.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the cohort approach. So you guys are the spring 2016 cohort. Some of you have already seen emails from me where I direct it to your cohort or the fall 2015 cohort. I advise all of the first year students for both their first 2 semesters, at which point you're handed off to another advisor for your concentration. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Practical suggestions for success. So grade expectations, very important. Things have changed from your undergraduate days. Graduate versus undergraduate expectations. We'll talk a little bit about your approach to classes. Workload expectations. We'll talk a little bit about school work-life balance. How many of you work full-time here? Part-time workers? Anybody who just doesn't work and is a full-time student? Excellent. We'll talk about class selections and concentrations, a little bit about advising, some online courses, and talk about the Writing Center, plagiarism, which you already heard about. And how many of you noticed that the plagiarism example given in the orientation was my example? Hopefully all of you noticed that. So I would advise you, definitely don't plagiarize here. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And after this is over, we'll have lunch, okay? Wow, that jumped. Okay, so the professors, this is a list of the professors, and you might be able to see it in your handout. The professors that we have today are Dr. Dan Barbie, Dr. Gary Anderson, Dr. Emily Neff-Sherem, Dr. Tracy Cooper, and the chair, the esteemed chair of our department, Dr. Kevin Freeman. So he graced us today. We're going to let you guys say a couple of words or introduce yourself if you'd like. Here's the contact information. I want you to note that the hours that are listed for office hours are probably not correct. So get online, look at our website, and you can see when you need to meet with your specific professor for the class that you happen to be taking. Our additional support team, I was going to have Emily Elk speak today. Yes, something online? No, okay. Amelia was going to be here today, our administrative assistant. There's one thing that I can tell you about Amelia. She knows the answer to virtually everything. And so if you have a question, I encourage you to send her an email. Put another way, send her an email before you send your advisor an email if something isn't working for you, okay? So if you need an override, if there's something that's wrong, that's paperwork related or process related, send it to Amelia. If it's class related, of course, you'll send it to your professor. She is a wonderful asset for this department. Okay, so now we're going to spend a little time, and I'm going to have you introduce yourselves, and I'd like you to follow this format. Your name, one thing that you hope to obtain as a result of your graduate education, what's your biggest fear about graduate education, and that may change by the end of this presentation, and one thing you'd like the class to know about you, and it can be whatever you choose. So let's do this. Let's see if we can do this for our people who are online so they can see you. That'll work. They can see most of you. And let's go ahead and start on the end here.
Do you want me to stand?
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Meredith Boyd. Let's see, one thing I hope to obtain. The knowledge and the know-how to exceed in the business world, so that I can get a job and pay back these good old student loans I'm about to. My biggest fear is that I'm not prepared, that I'm stuck in the undergraduate mindset, and that I may not adjust the way that I need to. One thing I'd like the class to know about me. I did my undergrad here, and I just finished in December.
Excellent. One thing you said was you want to understand the business world.
Yes.
This is really the public administration world. Okay, so the public sector, not the private sector. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Yes.
Hey, my name is Whitney Anderson. One thing I hope to obtain is a master's. Hopefully, so that I can get out and switch jobs. I'm currently in the private sector, and I'm looking to go into the public sector, hopefully start my own nonprofit. That's my goal.
Nice.
My biggest fear is that I've been out of school about 5 years, and I work full time, and I have little children. So I'm hoping, or I'm afraid that I'm taking on a lot, but hopefully I'll be okay. And one thing I like everybody to know about me is I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Next.
I'm Jessica Steger. The thing I'd like to obtain the most from a graduate program is my husband's military, so we move about every 3 years. And I'm currently was a teacher before I became a stay-at-home mom. So I'd like to find something that can move with me instead of having to start over at each career or at each place that we move. My biggest fear is I haven't done school in 10 years. So back when I was in school, online education did not exist really. And I'm doing it completely online. So what I'd like you to know about me is I have 2 young children that are 3 and 4, and they stay home all day with me. So it should be interesting to get my classwork in during nap time and bedtime for them, and to still be able to be, mom and do all the fun stuff we normally do. So.
Excellent. Thank you.
My name's Holly Jones. I'm hoping I can, of course, get into the public sector, maybe mayoral offices, and eventually to the Senate. My biggest fear is kind of like everyone else, failure, not actually being able to complete my program. And one thing to know about me is I restore classic cars and trucks.
Nice. That's something we share in common. I do the same. Next.
My name is Michael Essler. My biggest hope in obtaining this degree is that my dream job is actually work for an NGO, for a nonprofit, and I know this is one of the most sought after degrees. My biggest fear about this is I'm used to going to big time universities with a lot of population ever since I was actually in high school and grade school, so I was just another number. And I don't want to be another number here, and I'm already starting to feel much better about that, especially after this first orientation, so I'm really happy about that. And the one thing I like the class to know about me is that I am doing this online. I really do wish I could be here on campus because I do like to have real world experience, personal experience with my instructors, and that I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Andrew Brayboy. One thing I'd like to obtain is eventually I'd like to make it to a town manager or city manager, one of those. My biggest fear is that I do work full-time, so the course load coming in, just a little worried about that if I can balance both. And one thing about me is that I actually do work here on campus on the Recreation Center and Programs Manager, University Center, so stay pretty busy.
Excellent.
Good morning. My name is Norman Garnes. What I hope to obtain, remain viable in my current job in law enforcement and learn some nonprofit. So I want to be able to do both. Biggest fear is the unknown. See what you got, and we'll knock it out. I retired after 24 years in the Army, so cool.
Very good. Yes.
My name is Veronica High. One thing I'd like to get out of this is I have been with the city of Raleigh for about 17 years, and I've kind of moved up in ranks, and I know that I'm kind of stuck right now unless I get something like an MPA degree. So my goal is to come out of this program and keep moving forward.
Excellent.
I enjoy working in the local government sector. My biggest fear, this is actually my second semester. I came in the fall and took 2 classes, and it's been, I think I've got some of you ladies in the front row beat. It's been 23 years since I've done undergrad, and I have 2 kids also, and manager of 8 employees, so full plate. But I think I've gotten over my biggest fear, which was time management, and I think I've gotten a little better about it, so there is hope. One thing I'd like for the class to know is I'm actually a professional engineer, so math and science is my thing, so this is a big shift for me. But with my 17 years with the city, I think that I've kind of already been acclimated to the other side of things a little bit better, so I hope to blend the 2 together.
Excellent. Thank you. Last but not least.
Hi, my name is Bobby Kroom. I currently work with the city of Goldsboro and have approximately 14 years of municipal experience throughout my career. Veronica and I actually overlapped a little bit at the city of Raleigh for a few years. So my point in taking this, these courses and this program is to foster and hopefully gain a lot more leadership ability and really help myself out from a professional standpoint. I think there's a lot of weaknesses I can hopefully you guys can help me out with as far as public speaking may be one of them. My greatest fear is coming back to school. I would guess I would have to say I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of you. I've been out of undergraduate for quite a bit. I was a math major at NC State many years ago. Worked on a Master of Civil Engineering for several years, and now have jumped time and space, and I'm here for an MPA degree. So interested to see how that goes.
Excellent.
And one thing, I guess I kind of covered that with what you'd like to know about me. I'm a math major, so this is kind of out of our bailiwick from a standpoint of being comfortable in a course load standpoint and, again, public speaking.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know Dr. Nefsharam wants to speak. Does any other professors want to talk to the class? Just briefly introduce yourself, say a couple words. Anybody?
Oh, I'll go.
Okay, good.
I'm Dr. Cooper. I am teaching the PAD 5000 both on campus and online. It's an introductory overview to public administration. All of you will have to take me at some point, right? So welcome to the program.
Daniel Barbie. I started this thing in 1988. I'm the founding director. I'm very pleased to, first of all, still be around. Most of my students now aren't as old as my tenure here. But I teach primarily in the emergency management area and a variety of other subjects. But the one I teach that you'll all take is organizational behavior, the softest, but also the most practical. I hope you learn a lot, and I look forward to having you.
Dr. Anderson, you might as well go.
I'm Dr. Gary Anderson. I'm teaching in the public management concentration, and this semester I'm teaching an online and an in-class version of PAD 5060, which is human resource administration. So if you're interested in public management, you'll probably take me at some point in the program.
Okay. Kevin, would you mind speaking next, and then Emily's going to come up and do a little...
Kevin Freeman, I'm the chair of the Political Science Public Administration Department, but I am an international relations scholar, so I am not PA at all. So chances are you will never see me in a class unless you wander outside of the domain a little bit. But at the same time, my role as department chair, if you have questions about the program, if you have problems with any of your professors or anything like that, you certainly can email me, and I am happy to help take care of any problems or comments. And if, at the same time, if people are doing their jobs well and you're getting a lot out of it, tell me that as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Emily, you want to come on up?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Emily Nefsharam.
And if you stand right here, and
right
we'll get you on the
okay,
film.
Okay. I teach mainly on the undergraduate side, so you probably won't have me in a class. Occasionally, some of my undergraduate special topics classes get cross-listed. For instance, I teach a special topics in immigration policy that might be an option for you. That's usually in the summer. The big reason I wanted to talk to you, though, was I am a member on this campus of what's called the Enrollment Management Subcommittee, and so we deal with a lot of enrollment management issues. And one of the things that we're really trying to get the word out is to make sure you stay in your classes through what's called roster verification. Have you guys gotten emails? You might have gotten an email from the registrar that says it is very important. It is of huge importance that you go to class the first day. Okay, because if you don't go the first day, you will get dropped, and then you'll have to get added back in, and it's a big pain, and everyone gets frustrated. So be sure you go to class the very first day. If there is some emergency where you cannot go to class the first day, it is critical importance that you email your professor and you tell them why you aren't there, and promise that you will be there for the second day of class. Okay. If you are an online student, I heard many of you say that you're online only. The thing for you to be counted is that you log on within the first couple of days of the start of the semester. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and do whatever activity your professor has specified as your roster verification activity. Okay, that may be introducing yourself on a discussion board, creating a wiki for yourself, reading something and posting about it, but you have to do that assignment. Okay. Now, if you do something else on there and not the assignment that they have designated as roster verification, the professor has the right to drop you from the class. I know we've had a lot of students who've been frustrated about that in the past, but just be sure that you are looking in that syllabus or you're looking on that Blackboard page for whatever they have deemed what you need to do to show that you're going to be in the class for the semester. Okay, because we've had that problem before where students in classes, not necessarily here, but across the across the university, undergrad and graduate, where students have maybe logged on and didn't complete the activity and assumed because they logged on that the professor would count them as there. Okay, not all professors go and check the logs to see if you logged on or not.
Some of them are, just pulling up they may have done a discussion board and not the roster verification assignment. But sometimes what the professor does is they just pull up the grades from the roster verification and they're going through and checking. And they're not going and looking all through Blackboard to see if you participated somewhere. So just be sure that you do whatever it is so that you don't get dropped. Because we've had a lot of students who've gotten frustrated, professors have gotten frustrated, and that way no one is frustrated when you start your program if you do that piece. So if you're in class, be sure you come the first day. If you can't, be sure you email your professor. If you're online, be sure you're looking for the online roster verification assignment and completing it here in the next few days, okay? Any questions about roster verification or? Okay, great. And last thing, a few of you guys, I was someone who had kids in grad school. So if you ever need a person to chat just about life, kid management, that kind of thing, you're welcome to come talk to me.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Nashar. So at the start, I asked you kind of what public administration was and what a job might be that was associated with it. One way to think about public administration, and I have a quote up here, simply stated, public administration is the management of government agencies. We could extend that to include nonprofits, particularly MPAs, are usually able to work in the nonprofits sector effectively. Public administration, in my mind, can be thought of as anything that's not private administration. And so folks get an MBA to do what I would call private administration, right? It's a private company. Public administration, on the other hand, deals with public entities, agencies, town managers. Anything that's in the public sector can be thought of as a public administration type job. And as I said, NGOs or also nonprofits can be thought of as being in that sector as well. And like I said, one way to think of an MPA is an MBA for the public sector. That's one way to think of it. And you are going to have to deal with some classes like finance that may not be pleasant, okay? But you have to learn to deal with finances. And I would also say the same thing about research methods and quantitative analysis. We have a couple of math people in here. You are probably going to have fun in that class. The others of you might struggle a little bit, but I promise you one thing, you will learn a great deal, okay? Spring 2016 cohort. So one of the things that you can do as part of a cohort is that you're not alone, right? You look around, you see people that are undergoing the same schooling as you are right now. When I did my MBA, I actually had a cohort format, and it turns out that if you exchange email addresses and phone numbers, that a lot of times you can build relationships that will last a long time. I still have relationships with my MBA cohort. I still keep touch bases with them. It's also a great way to network. I would say that each one of you, at least if I listen to your introductions, has an interest at either having a job in the public sector or moving up inside the job that you currently have in the public sector. Networking, or the ability to know someone in another agency, could very well lead to jobs. Okay, so there's a practical aspect of knowing the other members of your cohort. The other thing that I would say is that when assignments come along that are difficult, I often find that students can more effectively help each other than sometimes even a professor can, right? Students that understand something can explain it on a different level than sometimes professors can. And so you can get help from other students. And of course, in my class, I encourage my students to help each other. Obviously, I do not encourage them to plagiarize off each other, but just to help each other, okay? So I think the cohort structure of this program is very beneficial to you as students. So roughly 10.7% of all individuals in the U.S. have graduate degrees. I know Irene said worldwide she thinks it's 5%. That's a little over 10% here in the U.S. That's still a pretty elite category, okay? One thing I want you to remember is that being in that elite category comes with costs. Costs associated with your time. You're not going to have the time that you had when you weren't going to school. Costs associated with the pain of learning, okay? I'm not doing my job as a professor if I don't push you to your limit. And we'll talk a little bit about grade expectations, but I want you to know we are going to push you hard to learn. And if you don't get an A your first semester, don't be surprised, okay? Somebody tell me what the grade is that exceeds expectations. What grade is that? A. Meets expectations? B. How about does not meet expectations?
C.
C. Good. And failed? The big fat Freddy. Okay. Somebody tell me what this distribution kind of looks like. How about you math majors? Anybody know what kind of distribution that is?
Normal distribution.
Normal distribution. What's the grade at a normal distribution? In that normal distribution, what's the grade? It's a C. That's the grade I would associate with an undergraduate degree. I would expect the majority of students to receive a C. However, in a graduate program, what's this distribution? Math majors, anybody know?
Skewed.
That's it, skewed. Skewed. In what way is it skewed? Left. It's skewed left. So what we see here, what's the grade at the peak of that distribution? Roughly.
B plus, A minus.
So yeah, around a B. Around a B. If I'm doing my job correctly as a professor, when I look at a class distribution, I would expect for graduate students such as yourselves to see a distribution that looks about like that, with a majority of B's and a few A's. Okay? So I want you to not be surprised if you get a B. It's okay. Irene covered this in great detail, so I'll skim over it really quickly. If you receive an F, you will be dropped immediately from the program. Okay? You will not be allowed to enroll. If you accumulate 3 or more C's, you will be dropped from the program. And as you heard Irene say, that after a waiting period of 2 years, you can apply to be admitted again. Okay? If you earn a grade of incomplete, if you don't take care of that incomplete by the next semester, it will automatically convert to an F. And what happens if it converts to an F? You're dropped from the program. So make sure you don't let that happen. Okay? Okay, I love this graphic. So in an undergraduate degree, your professors probably spoon-fed you a bit. They told you what you need to do, what you need to read, and they told you what you need to do to turn the crank to get the answer, especially you math majors, right? My undergraduate was in electrical engineering. I learned how to apply a formula. Basically, put in the formula, turn the crank, do the calculations, and out comes an answer. That's an undergraduate degree. We can think of it as kind of a simplistic learning process. In a graduate education, it's not that way at all. A lot of times, professors won't feed you the information you need. They'll tell you where to find it sometimes, sometimes not. Sometimes they won't even give you a question to answer. They'll let you come up with the question and the answer. Okay? This is drastically different. There won't be any hand-holding, I can tell you that. You have to show that you can think on your own. Okay? Quite different for a lot of folks. So, undergraduate, we feed you the information. Graduate, we don't feed you the information. Okay? Okay, approach to classes. Do lots of work outside of classes, with classes helping you move beyond the basic understanding. So if you just do the work that's assigned to you in class, and you don't do any outside work or any investigation on your own, it will be unlikely that you can get an outstanding grade in any class. It's up to you to go beyond what the requirements are in a syllabus, right? I want to see, if I want exceeds expectations, is that just doing what's in the syllabus? Are you exceeding my expectations if you do what's in the syllabus? Anybody?
No.
No. You're meeting my expectations. What grade is meets expectations? What grade is that? B. Kind of a B, right? I gave you a paper from one of my students in my class that exceeded my expectations. I've given you an example of it, but that's the kind of work that you need to do to exceed expectations. Everything counts. Undergrad, you ended up obsessing about just learning what would be on the exam. That's not the case here. We're not teaching you how to regurgitate material. We're teaching you how to come up with an answer on your own. And as many of you know, there's lots of ways to approach a problem, right? Even in the math, in the hard sciences, there's lots of ways to approach a problem, okay? So you're going to be asked to do that. Active learning, participation in class, questions, do not rely on being told. Put another way, our expectations is that you're going to be active in your class, whether it's online or whether it's a face-to-face class. There's nothing worse from my standpoint as a professor when I ask a question in class and I get a bunch of stares, deer in the headlight looks. That's disconcerting. That tells me that people maybe didn't study the material. So it's important that you actively participate. Some of you in your undergraduate, and this was true with me, in a class of 300 engineers, I might sit in the back and not participate. In these small classes here, you won't get away with doing that. You have to participate and actively participate, okay? Workload expectations. This is kind of a generic calculation. In undergrad, we said 1 hour of class equals 1 to 2 hours of outside class participation. At the grad level, we say 1 hour of class is 3 to 4 hours of outside class preparation. And I can tell you in my quantitative analysis class, PAD 5080, it will be every bit of that and more, because you'll be using an econometric program that most of you probably are not familiar with. So you will spend a lot of time learning outside of class. If you add up those hours for a typical 6 hour, so a 6 hour load in graduate school, that's 24 hours a week minimum of studying outside of class. I want you to think about how in your lives right now you might find 24 hours of extra time, especially with children, okay? So these classes can be very, very demanding. Full-time versus part-time approach. So our approach is, if you are working full-time, you should take no more than 6 credit hours. And that's a pretty hard and fast rule. So we're not very flexible in that case, especially during your first semesters. If you're working less than 20 hours a week, you can take a 9 credit hour load, and we'll assist you with that. The goal behind those rules is to not let you get overwhelmed with the material, right? We want you to start off kind of slow, make sure that you can handle this transition into scholarly endeavors. And so really that rule is to protect you. That's our goal. So, key role of the advisor in this process. So, I'm your advisor for your first year, and the classes that you will take are predefined. So everybody will get the same email, all my advisees in this cohort, and I will tell you specifically which classes you need to sign up for. There is no flexibility in a 6 credit hour load your first year. You'll all be taking the same courses. If you're online, you'll be seeing your names online. If you're in a face-to-face class, you'll recognize each other for your first year. There are some benefits to that. Building your cohort into a cohort that communicates and that works well together is important. We give you the time to do that your first year. After your first year, you will be passed on to your concentration advisor. We'll talk a little bit more about concentrations, who will help you with your focused studies. So for your first year, for sure, you will be taking some core classes that are mandated. So we have 4 concentrations. Public management, which is under Dr. Albrecht, who's not here today. Emergency management is Dr. Schneider. Criminal justice is TBD. We're looking for a focus on criminal justice right now. And health administration is Dr. Gianastasio. So if you're interested in any of those concentrations, other than obviously criminal justice, I would invite you to contact your concentration advisor and just introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm interested in this concentration. I just want to say hi. Okay? That would be my recommendation. Okay, key element of student-mentor relationship. all advising should come from MPA faculty, not from other offices on campus. So for your first year, all of your advising will come from me. For your subsequent years, all of your advising will come from your concentration advisor. Advising is not an email asking for a pen. So as your advisor, if you send me an email and say, give me my pen, please, you will not get your pen. I will ask you to tell me the courses that you're planning on taking and to ask for your pen, okay? So you need to tell me what courses you want to take, and I will reply back, yes, those courses are good, and here's your pen. If you've chosen the wrong courses because you didn't listen to my email that said, here are the courses you need to take, I'll ask you to give me another class selection until you get it right. Once you move into your concentration advisors, that's where the flexibility comes in, where you get to choose your classes that are important to you. And then you'll be interfacing with your concentration advisor. Online courses. How many of you are signed up for online courses? Raise your hand. Wow, so almost everybody. So online courses have a benefit in that they save commute time. You don't have to drive to and from campus. You can kind of work on your own schedule when it's an online class, which is a nice flexibility. The problem with online classes is that learning in an online environment for most people is more difficult than learning in a face-to-face environment. So part of my research focuses on how individuals communicate information, and the ways that we can communicate are face-to-face. We call that media rich. There's a lot of information. If I put my hands like this and I scowl at you, that's going to send you a message about something. Online, you don't get those messages, right? And sometimes it's difficult to interpret what you're being told online. That adds to the complexity of learning in that environment. So I would advise you, if you have the opportunity to take a face-to-face class, if it's convenient, you should, especially if it's a class that you think is going to be difficult for you. For example, PAD 5080, quantitative analysis, one of the more difficult classes in this degree program. I would encourage you to take it face-to-face if you can, if quantitative analysis scares you a little bit. Online education does not reduce the amount of time that you spend in class. It will not, in general, okay? It usually increases the amount of time that you have to spend. And I can tell you as a professor, when I teach online classes, it also takes me more time than a face-to-face class. So online classes can be more time consuming. The Writing Center, okay? So I gave you a report from my PAD 5080 class. I would like you to read through that report, pay attention to how it was written and the skills that were needed to write that. And again, if you don't think that you can do that and write to that level, I encourage you to contact the Writing Center. That's extremely important. Writing has been one of the more difficult things for our students to do, okay? So if you can't write to that level, please see the Writing Center. Plagiarism. Let's talk a little bit about plagiarism because I apparently seem to be known for plagiarism. In general, plagiarism is the act of presenting another's original thoughts as your ideas. There are 5 common types. Plagiarism of words. That's using another's exact words without citing. That is typically a cut and paste from an online document. It can also be you're looking at an online document and you're typing while you're reading online. To avoid that, I would recommend that you read the material online or the printed material, you put it away, and then you start writing. Okay, that will reduce the chance that you accidentally plagiarize. Plagiarism of structure, paraphrasing another's words by changing the sentence. So if you simply look at what somebody wrote and you paraphrase it, keeping the same structure, in other words, you choose little different words that mean the same thing, that's plagiarism. Don't do it, okay? Plagiarism of ideas, if you take an idea or a concept and don't credit it to the author that came up with it or the scholar, that's also plagiarism. Plagiarism of authorship, turning in a replication of another's work as your own. I've experienced that. I had a student turn in a document that was, or in large part, was somebody else's work. So make sure that you don't do that. Plagiarism of self, using your previous work. So if you hand in assignment in PAD 5000, and let's say that it was a great written assignment and you really did well on it, and you decide you want to use it in PAD 5080 as part of your research project, what would you need to do to be able to use that material? And Dr. Aiken told you.
Ask the professor first.
Absolutely. Just ask the professor. That's all you have to do. And if the professor says, sure, you can use your previous material, make sure you cite yourself, you'll be golden, okay? But make sure that you ask. By the way, if you put a sentence that in its entirety and you don't enclose it in quotation marks, but you do cite it, is that plagiarism or not? No quotation marks, but a citation right after the material. Plagiarism or not? It is plagiarism. You must use quotation marks if you're going to use a quote directly. I gave you that hint already. Just read it and then write. Remember that? Penalty for plagiarism in my classes, you get an F and you're expelled from the program. Okay? That's the penalty. Simply put, don't plagiarize. Okay, that's it. That kind of ended on a harsh setting. It's not really that bad if you're careful. Any questions about any of the material that you've been presented with today? Come on, there's got to be a question. What?
If you have taken graduate courses at another university, how easily is it accepted here as far as could it be taken in place of like not necessarily the major courses but maybe like an elective or something?
You know, it's up to the program director, and I think Dr. Aiken covered that.
Yeah.
The max transfer I want to say is 2 classes maybe.
I guess I just kind of wanted to see how easy for the MPA specifically, not just, I know she answered that, but how often has that happened for the MPA, I would say?
It happens occasionally.
Okay.
And it isn't frowned upon. The program director will make a decision. Yeah, that looks like a comparable class, or no, it doesn't. One thing I'd recommend, if you do want to do that, make sure you have a copy of the syllabus from the class that you took. It is very difficult to evaluate somebody else's work without a syllabus.
Okay.
So try to have that, and then it's up to the program director.
Okay.
I can tell you they will work with you.
Great.
Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I noticed that in the previous orientation they were using Windows, but you're using a Mac. Does it matter which one's preferred for the online courses?
It doesn't.
Okay, because I read that it was comparable for both, but I just wanted to make sure that there's nothing, no issues with the new Windows 10 updates and all that.
So no, now that's not to say that issues don't crop up. For instance, we had a web page once that didn't work well with Safari. Of course, Safari is the default browser in a Mac, but you can also get Chrome and Firefox. So in general, no, you can use any computer that you want. In the class that requires Stata, the econometric program analysis tool you'll be using, it comes in either Mac or Windows format, and so again, you're safe. Okay. Yes.
A bit building off of what he was talking about, kind of more to Windows 10 itself, as far as Edge, which is their browser. Have any problems cropped up with that, or should we just go ahead and download like Google Chrome?
So I would say anytime you're dealing with a new software package working in an existing environment, that there's always the risk that something's not going to work. If it were me, I would try it in Edge, and then let's say that you run into a problem, then I would just go download Firefox or Chrome and use it. And I don't know if Windows still supports Internet Explorer or not.
It's their updated version of it.
Okay.
Pretty much
Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing. Yes, Dr. Nefsharam.
I would say if you have technological questions, that do not hesitate to call DOIT. That's the Department of
Information Technology.
Thank you. I should know that.
They have a help, like a walk-up help desk over in Lowry, next to where Starbucks is. That's the Lowry building. Inside there, if you want to talk to someone face-to-face, call, email. They're really good about responding, and they're there to help support these questions. So if you're having a problem with Blackboard in your browser, they can help provide some guidance for you. And it's always good to know, like if there's a lot of people using Edge and Blackboard is having a problem, it may take them a semester to fix it,
Right.
but they will address it.
Right. And they'll know immediately based on the number of calls. Dr. Barbie.
I mentioned one other thing on that, just what Doctor was saying. Call them on Blackboard issues or on software issues of that type, especially in your online classes. And they have a phone number. I'll give you the number that she was referring to. It's 521-6260. They know me well.
That's area code 9102.
910 area code, yeah.
Outstanding.
So like if Blackboard's not allowing you to upload an assignment you're trying to upload, right, your professor's not going to be able to help you fix that problem, but the Do It Help Desk will.
Oh, and you know what? That actually raises an interesting point. If you try to upload, let's say you've got an assignment due at midnight on a certain day, I can tell you all of my assignments are pretty much due at midnight on a certain day. If you wait to upload it until 11:59 p.m. and you run into a technology problem and it doesn't work, you may or may not be relieved of that requirement. What I can tell you is, if that happens, you should contact your professor immediately, like at 11:59 and 20 seconds, and say, tried to upload it, I couldn't. Send it via email, just to make sure that you're covered, okay? Technology issues occur. If you're the type that waits to the last minute, make sure you send your assignment via email to your professor and notify your professor if that happens. Because Blackboard sometimes breaks down. It's a complicated program, and it sometimes has issues. Okay, any other questions?
Oh, I don't know. Do you guys use the test function?
I do.
If you use the test function in Blackboard, similar deal. If you start your test before the due date, it will not allow you to submit it. You have to complete your test by the deadline. That's how Blackboard works. So, just so that you know. Does that make sense? So the deadline is completion, not start for Blackboard.
Right. So yeah, if it says, it must be turned in at midnight on a particular day, that doesn't mean start it on that day. It means complete it. If it's a test, you have to have time to finish it. Otherwise, it'll terminate it, and the score you get is wherever it kicked you off, whatever your score was at that time. Okay, we had one student walk in. Would you mind introducing yourself?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My name is Catherine Knudsen. I work in admissions. I was working also undergraduate orientation.
Excellent.
I'll be doing the public management track.
And you're face-to-face or online?
Face-to-face.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Any other questions at all? How many of you are going to go to lunch with us today? There's a free lunch, and it's actually not bad in our cafeteria. I invite you to come over and have lunch with us. I think some of the professors are going to go with you. If there are no other questions, you are released. If you have any questions or you think of something, please send me an email, okay? Thank you.